didn't sign it. And boy, oh boy, they probably gonna go after him too. Because I heard him, and I'm giving you this, Aubrey. He stood up there and he said, in front of a lot of people, we were in the studio. And I said something to him and walked out the studio. He said, yo, I'm a drug their off and picked them out and picked them out to my nigga. He said, I'm gonna drug them out. I'm gonna get them all on drugs. And I'm gonna pimp their out to my I was like, somebody kids. And walked out.
Everybody knows that back in the day, 50 Cent survived a near-death experience. 9 bullets fired at him, yet he lived to tell the tale. That's a story we've all heard. But what hardly anyone realizes is that Gene Deal, someone deeply connected to the inner workings of the streets, was among the very first people to check in on 50 right after the shooting. Here's where things take a sharp turn. At the time, Gene was heavily involved with the Murder Inc. crew, a group that carried serious weight both in the streets and within the music industry. This connection gave him unique insight into the rivalries and power struggles that were playing out. Now, consider this. The man linked to that infamous shooting eventually fell from grace at the hands of none other than 50 Cent himself. That's right, 50 ultimately brought down the same individual who once threatened his life. But it gets even more tangled. In a stunning twist, 50 is now suggesting that Gene's involvement went beyond a mere courtesy call. According to 50, Gene might have played a pivotal role in his survival on that harrowing night. He's essentially saying that Gene wasn't just a concerned friend, he was a crucial piece of the puzzle that allowed 50 to make it through one of the most dangerous moments of his life. The deeper you dig, the more it starts to look like this wasn't just another random act of violence. Instead, it seems there may have been an intricate plan at play. What really went down during that shooting? Who was calling the shots from behind the curtain, ensuring that 50 would live to rise again? Gene Deal, once a trusted bodyguard for Diddy, has just dropped some bombshell claims that challenge everything we thought we knew about the notorious 2000 attack on 50 Cent. For years, fans and insiders alike have speculated about who truly wanted 50 taken out. But Gene's story paints a far darker picture. It suggests that powerful, shadowy figures were orchestrating events from behind the scenes, manipulating the narrative and pulling the strings while 50 fought for his life. The more you dig into this story, the more everything starts falling into place. Gene claims that when the news of 50's 9 gunshot wounds broke, he was down in Mexico with the BMF crew. But what happened next is where things take a sharp turn into conspiracy territory. According to Gene, 50's former manager reached out, trying to get in touch with Supreme. Yes, the same Supreme who's long been linked to that notorious shooting. Now think about it. Why would someone from the 50's own camp be trying to connect with a man so closely associated with that kind of violence? That's not just suspicious. It's a flashing red light. It raises the unsettling possibility that certain people in the 50's inner circle might have known more than they let on. Instead of being blindsided by the attack, they might have already had a sense of who was behind it. This wasn't just your average beef. It was a high-stakes chess match, with moves and counter-moves playing out behind the scenes. Gene also mentioned that the tension was thick, practically suffocating. And then there was Murder Inc., a name that kept surfacing over and over. According to Gene, people tied to the label seemed to be making strategic moves, as if they were bracing for a major event. They weren't caught off guard by 50 getting hit. If anything, it was like they had expected it. That's a huge claim to make, but it fits the narrative of one of the most intense rivalries in hip-hop history. Let's not forget, 50 Cent and Murder Inc. weren't just throwing casual jabs at each other. Their feud was legendary. Explosive even. So when Gene started calling out the strange behavior he noticed from Murder Inc.'s crew, the streets didn't just shrug it off. Instead, people started talking. Fans, insiders, and everyone in between began to wonder, could Irv Gotti and Ja Rule have been more deeply involved than anyone realized? And these weren't just idle rumors. This was happening right at the height of 50's meteoric rise and Murder Inc.'s reign at the top. Both sides had so much to gain and so much to lose. And here's what makes it all the more shocking. Murder Inc. wasn't just a successful rap label. Their connections ran deep into the streets, the kind of ties that made them a serious power in the game. When you look at it from that angle, the idea that 50's shooting might have been part of a larger, carefully calculated plan doesn't seem so far-fetched. It seems, well, downright plausible. By the early 2000s, everyone in the industry knew Irv Gotti's crew had deep ties to Kenneth Supreme McGriff, one of the most feared names in the game. Supreme wasn't just a street legend, he was said to be running a massive drug empire that spilled over into the music world. Then came 2003, and everything exploded. Federal agents raided Murder Inc.'s offices, looking to uncover evidence of money laundering and links to Supreme's operations. The accusations weren't small time. The feds were aiming to connect the dots between Supreme's street dealings and Murder Inc.'s cash flow. Suddenly, the idea that the streets and the music industry were tightly interwoven didn't seem like just whispers anymore. It felt real. While Irv Gotti and his brother eventually beat the charges, the high-profile case left lingering doubts and raised serious questions. People started wondering aloud, if Supreme really wanted 50 Cent gone, was Murder Inc. just standing on the sidelines? Or were they more involved than anyone was willing to admit? The investigations and rumors painted a murky picture, one that left many wondering just how deep the connections really ran. It's a question that's never fully gone away. Fast forward to now. Despite everything that's happened over the years, 50 Cent still hasn't let any of it slide. When Irv Gotti recently passed, you might think that the decades-old feud would finally be put to rest. But 50? He had no intention of letting bygones be bygones. Instead of paying respects, he jumped straight on Instagram, mocking and clowning Irv's death. No condolences, no moments of silence, just sharp-edged jokes. It's a move that speaks volumes about 50's state of mind. That old grudge, it's not just alive, it's thriving. 50 isn't backing down an inch. Then there's Gene Deal's explosive interview. 50 didn't try to distance himself or play it off. No, he went ahead and reposted the entire interview on his own social media pages, effectively putting his stamp of approval on it. For someone as shrewd as 50, that's no small thing. He's always been careful about what he endorses, separating baseless rumors from hard truths. So, for him to co-sign Gene's account publicly, that's not just a nod, it's a statement. It suggests that, from 50's perspective, Gene's story holds real weight. And then the narrative twists even further. Gene's story brings up Daryl "Hamo" Baum, a name that isn't unfamiliar in the world of street politics. Baum wasn't just a figure on the sidelines, he was a well-connected individual, reportedly serving as Mike Tyson's personal bodyguard. His presence in the story adds a layer of complexity that hints at a much bigger and more tangled web. This wasn't just a one-time incident or a simple misunderstanding. It was a chain of events involving some of the most powerful and well-connected players, both inside and outside of the music industry. Their bond went way back. Brooklyn roots intertwined and a shared street savvy that built trust over years. Daryl "Hamo" Baum wasn't just a familiar face in Tyson's crew. He was a name that carried weight on the streets, someone whose reputation alone provided a layer of security. For Tyson, having Baum in his circle added an unspoken sense of protection, even if the connection between them and 50's shooting has always remained in the realm of speculation. Tyson himself has never been formally linked to the incident, and 50 has never pointed a finger in that direction. Still, Baum's name lingers in the background, like a shadow stretching over the story. Anyone who's listened closely to Many Men knows that Baum's role didn't go unnoticed. His name comes up, his impact felt even in the bars. But what makes this narrative even murkier is what happened just weeks after the infamous shooting. Baum was killed in Brooklyn during what was reported as a drug-related altercation. That timing, so close to the attempt on 50's life, fueled rampant speculation. Was it just a tragic coincidence? Or did Baum's death fit into a larger pattern of retaliation and street-level vendettas? To this day, the answers remain elusive. and the questions keep circling. And now, yet another figure from 50's orbit may be about to step into the spotlight. Monster, his long-serving bodyguard. Known for his discretion and fiercely loyal demeanor, Monster was more than just a muscle for hire. He was a steady, commanding presence, someone who moved quietly but carried a reputation that spoke volumes. According to recent rumblings, Monster is preparing to tell his side of the story, but only for the right price. Allegedly, he's holding out for a six-figure deal before he'll reveal sensitive details from his time working with 50. Monster's role wasn't limited to standing around in the background. He was a trusted enforcer, someone who helped maintain a bubble of security and order around one of the most targeted figures in hip-hop. From day one, he kept a low profile, but his importance was undeniable. If you've ever seen those early G-Unit videos, you've likely spotted Monster at 50's side, always watching, always prepared. Now, with the possibility of him breaking his silence, the story of 50's rise, and the violence, loyalty, and betrayals that surrounded it, may be about to take on an entirely new dimension. Monster was the definition of a shadow, a ghost who always seemed to be just a step ahead of the madness. One moment he's dodging cameras at an airport, the next he's stationed at a club, eyes scanning the crowd for any sign of trouble. He was always right there, unassuming yet ever watchful, prepared to step in at a moment's notice. When 50 took the stage, Monster's presence was constant, a quiet force that allowed the rapper to focus on his performance while he handled the rest. One of Monster's most infamous moments came during the tense on-stage confrontation between 50 and TTT Trav. The footage shows Monster locked in, laser-focused on T-Trav, ready to intervene if the situation went south. It's a scene that's been dissected countless times, but what stands out is Monster's composure, his ability to stand firm, assessing every move, and keeping the chaos in check. But that was then. Now, the relationship between 50 and Monster has reportedly taken a dramatic turn. Word on the street is that 50 has cut Monster loose, and that's where things start to get interesting. Rumors swirl that Monster is sitting on some heavy ammunition. We're not just talking about behind-the-scenes anecdotes. No, he's allegedly got receipts, hard evidence that could potentially shake things up. One particularly juicy rumor involves a mysterious YouTube video supposedly exposing certain aspects of 50's past. The video vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving people to wonder what kind of bombshell it contained. Then, as if the plot couldn't thicken any further, Whack 100 enters the scene. On a Getty radio show appearance, he claimed that Monster is aiming for $1 million payday to spill everything he knows. If that's true, the stakes are sky high. Whatever secrets Monster is holding, they must be powerful enough to warrant a seven-figure deal. Even now, the danger surrounding 50 hasn't subsided. That infamous 9-shot survival back in the day didn't scare off his enemies. It just made them more cautious. Take the incident in September 2003. Just 8 months after Get Rich or Die Tryin' skyrocketed to the top. As the story goes, 50 was leaving a hotel in Jersey City when gunfire erupted. This time, nobody was hit, but the message was unmistakable. Someone still wanted him gone. After that close call, 50 knew he couldn't operate like an ordinary rapper anymore. The streets were still too dangerous. It became clear he needed to change his approach. More security, fewer public appearances, a tighter inner circle. He shifted into total lockdown mode, a decision that underscored just how serious the threats against him remained. Back then, he brought in Frank Alexander, known as Big Frank, to keep everything locked down. Big Frank, another steady, quiet presence, became a key player in ensuring 50 could continue to rise without constantly looking over his shoulder. Monster may have stepped back, but 50's measures for survival only ramped up, showing just how high the stakes had become in his quest to stay on top. Over time, 50 Cent has learned to keep his circle tight and his security even tighter. Nowadays, he rolls with a crew of ex-military and former law enforcement professionals, ensuring that his safety is never left to chance. He doesn't cut corners. He's always 2 steps ahead, running his operation with the precision of someone who's been through it all. After surviving a near-fatal shooting, multiple betrayals, and a series of calculated attempts on his life, 50 has good reason to stay vigilant. Trust isn't something he gives out freely. In an industry riddled with snakes and an underworld teeming with hidden agendas, he's had to learn the hard way that loyalty is rare. Even people who once seemed rock solid have turned out to be unreliable. But amidst all the chaos, one name keeps coming up: Gene Deal. From the moment the news broke about 50 getting shot, Gene was on the phone, digging into the situation and trying to make sense of it all. He wasn't looking for attention or trying to boost his profile. He was on a mission for the truth. Now, years later, Gene is still dropping explosive revelations, details that others either ignored or were too scared to confront. While many chose silence or played both sides, Gene stayed sharp. He watched, listened, and refused to let crucial pieces of the story slip away. Even if 50 didn't fully acknowledge Gene's efforts back then, it's clear now that he recognizes who truly had his back when it mattered most. But the questions remain. Just how deep does this rabbit hole go? If Gene really had inside knowledge all those years ago, what does that say about the broader picture? And then there's Monster, reportedly gearing up to spill even more secrets. Is he really going to put it all out there for a hefty payday? Or is there a whole new layer of intrigue waiting to be uncovered? After everything that's come to light, why does it still seem like some forces out there haven't let go of the idea of removing 50 from the equation? Even after all these years, the tension hasn't faded. The whispers of schemes, betrayals, and long-buried secrets continue to surround 50's story, hinting that the full truth might be darker and more tangled than anyone suspected.